Welcome back to another episode of the Badgernotes After Dark podcast, part of the Big Banter Sports Network. I'm your host, Dillon Graff, co-founder of Badgernotes.com. You can follow the podcast on YouTube at Badgernotes After Dark or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Y'all might notice that tonight only got Coop with me. We're down two of Wisconsin's finest this evening. Coop, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. Just so the fans aren't worried if they were paying attention, I am drinking an orange monster instead of my usual High Life. Going California sober for a little bit, so don't fret to all my High Life lovers out there. I will be back, but taking a little break, for the old health. But how are you?
Hey, all that I ask on your end, and I respect that move, is I would love to see you fax in like a Michael Jordan, like I'm back situation when
absolutely,
you're back.
absolutely.
Send a message.
I'll have the High Life guy like in the letter somewhere. You remember the dude from those commercials?
Yeah, we'll throw that on the pod, much like your letter to or your email to Charter.
Hey, I had an issue since with Charter, so
they heard you loud and clear, man.
Yeah,
movement. No, I'm doing pretty good. Today we're gonna kind of get into, I'll put it on the record here. We're gonna shoot for a shorter episode. We'll see what that means. Only God knows. But today we're gonna talk about Greg Scruggs, departing Wisconsin Badgers staff. Touch on Fanduel drop their win-loss totals for the 2024 season. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. Talk some Badger hoops. It's been a fucking roller coaster, and then we'll wrap it up with Big Dawgs of the week and what are we doing here. But we're gonna take it all the way back to the beginning. Greg Scruggs, Badgers D-line coach of just one season, has departed. He is taking the same job at Michigan. Under the new head coach Moore. The two do have ties from their time at Louisville. Scruggs was a player. Moore was a graduate assistant, reportedly very close. Greg Scruggs getting a nice pay increase, good for him. One of those things where, this is just my opinion. Like, I do not view moves to the same, coaching the same position as lateral when that movement is to the national champions. Like this is much like our Colin Hitchler discussion. I just view it as you got more money, you went to a program that's easier to sell. A lot of these assistants are wanting to work their way up the totem pole, working to become head coaches. He's had a very quick ascension. It's a relationship business. There's no world in which I can spin this in a way where Greg Scruggs leaving for Michigan is a positive, because it simply isn't. But this is not reflective of Greg Scruggs or his character. This is a man chasing a dream. He had no other ties to Wisconsin. He was here for 1 year. I do believe Wisconsin will survive. Coop, do you got any opinions on that?
Anytime you're taking that big of a pay increase, it ain't a fucking lateral move. Let's just get that on the record. I don't care if you have the same title or not. But yeah, sucks. I think we'll figure it out. I think we'll figure a defensive line coach out. There's a lot of talented guys out there. And Scruggs is one of them, else he wouldn't have gotten the job at Michigan. And can't blame the guy for turning that job down. Anyone in his position would have taken that job. So
yeah,
it sucks, but I think we'll figure it out. And it's not like, every position coach is important, but it's not like we lost a coordinator or like a run game coordinator or like your defensive pass game coordinator, something like that. I don't know if we're even that specialized at Wisconsin, but a lot of teams do shit like that. Or it's not like I think it was Georgia State today. Do you see their head coach left? Yeah. They were 3 days into spring practice. Their head coach left to be the Georgia tight end coach. Not mad at the guy.
And realistically,
way more money.
I was going to say, realistically, a lot of those guys are going to be making as much or more money and taking on far less responsibility and not having to do, look no further than Packers' new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. He left Boston College because he was tired of everything about basically every direction the college game is going. All the NIL, the fundraising, all of those things. Like, he just wanted to coach football, and I don't think that I think we're gonna see until the NCAA figures out what it is exactly that whatever they're gonna do to fix this thing. Like, there are gonna be plenty of other coaches that do the same.
Well, that's how fucking stupid the NCAA is they didn't have the foresight for this 15 fucking years ago, and now they created their own mess. So good for them. I love it. I love all the NIL. I get
Yeah,
why
I
the
do
coaches
too.
I get why the coaches might hate it, but adapt or die, brother.
Yeah, just to circle back to the Scruggs thing, I really only have two thoughts of note. One, again, he was here for 1 year. I don't know that, and maybe this is just my opinion. I don't know that we know how good of a defensive line coach he is, and I don't
That's
say that
okay.
as reflective of necessarily the product on the field, but like, I don't think any of us were enamored with the
No,
performance of the unit as a whole. And I'm
not the
also not
best year.
saying that's reflective of his ability to coach, because he didn't exactly inherit some incredible group. Like,
Yeah.
Keanu Benton went pro, and what was left was what was left. And
Yeah.
so I'm not saying one way or the other my opinion of him as, the ability to coach the position group. I just don't know how to effectively judge him that way. I think James Thompson made, a
He had
nice
a good
jump.
year.
But beyond that, like, I just, as far as replacing him as a position coach, I think they will be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not real concerned about that. On the
It's
flip
not like
side,
it's not like we sent like 4 defensive linemen to the NFL last year or something crazy
r-
like that, you know? And that's not his
right.
fault, but
Yeah, and there's just not a body of work there. For us to feel like this is a massive departure there. But I do want to acknowledge that, like, Wisconsin's one of their Achilles heel has been recruiting the defensive line position, and Greg Scruggs did a
yeah, he
wonderful
did.
job this past season. He brought in 2 4-star defensive linemen in the same class, and for context, Wisconsin had only signed 2 4-star defensive linemen prior to that since 2016. So he was doing something right. Like, his ability to, and honestly, I think a lot of position coaches in college, like, you care more about their ability to recruit maybe than actually coach position
Yeah.
groups. And I think in a lot of cases. So in that aspect, like, yeah, it was a loss. Like, I think that's worth acknowledging. Like, it is a loss in that regard. Like, he did a great job as a recruiter, and he's going to Michigan, where he's not going to have a very tough time
Yeah.
selling defensive line recruits there. But just really the final thought I have at all there is, yeah, I think that there is an argument to be made that Wisconsin might need to find a way to increase their assistant coaching salary pool a little bit, to retain guys in the situations where money is the difference. And we don't know in the cases of a Greg Scruggs or Colin Hitchler if money would have swayed either of them, at all. But it also is worth acknowledging that, like, this isn't them being cheap, because keep in mind, Jack Bicknell Jr., was reassigned. He's still getting paid by the Badgers. Like,
Yeah.
he's still getting paid. And then we hired AJ Blazik. So, like, we are effectively paying one more assistant coach than we would be paying. So it's not like they're cheaping out. Like, cheaping out would have been rolling with Bicknell regardless of
Yeah.
situation. They didn't do that. So, like, I this goes both ways. Like, I think retaining quality assistants is going to be important, but it's going to remain cyclical, and they're not being cheap. Like,
No.
otherwise Blazik wouldn't be here.
It's not like we're cash poor. Like, we got money. You just don't have
Exactly.
to overspend.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in lockstep with you there. Like, Greg Scruggs is gone. Like, he was kind of in the public eye maybe a little more than defensive line coaches in the past, and so maybe that played a role in people being slightly more enamored with him. But don't think this is a make or break type thing. Assistant coaches come and go. We're going to lose more at the end of next year, and probably sit here and have a pretty similar conversation.
Hey, good for him though.
Yeah, absolutely. Go get them checks.
Get your money, exactly. Get your money,
I got
baby.
nothing but love for anyone who's out there getting checks. So,
No.
Greg Scruggs, it was a pleasure. We're on to Fanduel's win totals. that dropped this week, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Coop. I don't really have any gripes with it. They've got Wisconsin at 6.5 wins, slightly below the average in the Big Ten. Looking at next year's schedule, Coop, if you gun to your head, you've got to make a call right this second. What does your gut tell you?
Well, gun won't be to my head. Gun will be straight in the air because we're emptying the fucking clip on the over. Let me tell you
Okay.
that right now. Little
right.
future bets preview right there. I think it's the right line. I'll say that 6.5 is definitely the right line.
Yep.
But I'm putting a fucking car note, a rent payment on the I don't know. I'm just delusional probably, but I feel good. Not as good as my Braylon Allen one, but I feel good about emptying the clip here.
Hey, I love that. I'll be honest. I'm in total agreement. I think that 6.5 is the absolute
nuts.
It's the absolute. They nailed it. They put you in a spot where, like, I think my gut tells me that they do go over. But why I don't feel good about that is you look at the schedule here, and that basically means you have to win all of the games in which you would maybe be expected to, and some of those games that you would be expected to win, unfortunately, are going to come on the road. And it also probably means that, like, you might even have to sneak a game that you're not projected to win. And we just haven't seen anything to this point that suggests they're ready to make that leap. They've upgraded the talent this offseason for sure. Want to acknowledge that. But this isn't a team that closed well in the fourth quarter of games last year, and I don't know. I think that we need for Wisconsin to hit the over to feel good about the direction of where this program is headed, 100%. But that's the right line. That's a tough one. I think I would also lean over, but I think I'd be sitting there in November sweating it.
I love it. Like I love the over, but I also hate the over, which means I got to empty the clip. Like I gotta have some conviction here. So we're emptying the fucking clip, baby. But I mean, so we got home against Western Michigan, who was down last year. Usually pretty competitive program though. But they were down, so that's a win in my book. Give me one.
Sure hope so.
Right. And then who do we got? South Dakota, fucking something.
South Dakota at Camp Randall.
Yeah, win.
Then it's
against Alabama.
I think that for me is where I go 2-1.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that's a loss. Gonna go out on a limb there. I think we beat USC.
And so that's one that I also look at, and I'll be honest, I today I don't believe that they will beat USC, but I also, of some of the more marquee programs that we are going to face, I think that might be
the easiest one.
That might be a winnable one. I wish that was a game that was at Camp Randall in late October and not in Cali in September, like that. So I'm with you that I think that one's definitely possible, but I don't love the circumstances if we're gonna upset them, because I would assume going into that they would be the favorite.
All right, here we go. Quiet. We'll go through the rest of the schedule, but we have at USC and at Iowa on the schedule. Who are you more concerned about? Right,
Iowa.
Right.
It's
right?
Iowa, because we talked about it this past year. Like, we've lived this game over and over, and it's like, if anybody can take a lead that exceeds 3 points, it just seems insurmountable. Tip of the cap to Ferenc. Like, that's they win games. They win games in ways that I guess I do appreciate as an outsider, but God, they do that shit ugly. And
it's like the Seahawks. Like, they never play a normal game. Like, the Hawkeyes there's always some weird shit happening when Iowa plays, and it's like a 30-point like game total. But anyway, I think we beat USC. So give me 3-1 there. Home against Purdue, slaughter. 4-1. At Rutgers, tough game, but give me at Rutgers. 5-1. At Northwestern concerns me. Not gonna lie. 6-1. Versus Penn State, we'll go 6-2. At Iowa, I think we lose that game. Go 6-3. I think we drop 3 in a row here against Penn State, Iowa, and Oregon. I really do. And so that puts us at what, 6-4? And then at Nebraska, to me, that's a toss-up.
Nebraska's they've made market improvements so far.
Hate Nebraska, but I respect what Matt Rule's doing out there. That's a toss-up, but I think between Nebraska and Minnesota, if we have 6 wins entering the last 2 weeks, we hit this over. We beat one of those teams.
So I think fundamentally I'm with you. I think 7 wins is where we end up. Now, to walk back and, not look at it from a gambling standpoint, this team wins 7 games. Do you feel good about where things are at as a program?
In the new Big Ten, yeah, kind of. And maybe I shouldn't. Maybe that's not the way to go. But another way I'm looking at it too is, okay, it's year 2, and we're on our second, basically, I don't know if he's a grad transfer, but second senior year transfer quarterback. Once we get our guy, and it could be the year after this, who knows how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Then that's when I feel like the expectations are going to start getting higher. I get these are established guys, but
yeah, I definitely hear that, and I think year 3, almost regardless of construct, it's time to be seeing results, and I'm more than willing to be patient throughout this process. I do believe we need to see it on the field, and that will always obviously be number 1, but I remain encouraged by when there are holes on the roster, when this group sees an issue, they're really good at addressing it. These guys have been able to go into the portal and, quite frankly, pull out kick our coverage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think a few times, especially with what they've done at linebacker. I think Wisconsin is, I don't want to say necessarily the easiest sell, but I think there's more than enough here that we're a top 20 program, and I think they're going to get back there. I believe by year 3, we're going to be looking at a really quality product. But I think for me to feel better about that we're going to get there where we all want to go, which is the 12-team playoff, now that it's expanded, I think I need to see Wisconsin reach 8 wins. I need them to win one of those games they're not supposed to. That's what I want more than anything. I don't care which one of them it is, but any of those games that we look at and think probably a loss, want to see Wisconsin go out tough their opponent and just sneak another one. If they win 8 games, I will feel like the playoffs is something that that we can reach. And
I mean, if you win 9 games, you might make the playoff.
You might make the playoff, especially with the schedules that we're going to have moving forward.
Yeah.
The 2025 schedule is, I would argue, tougher than the 2024 schedule. So it's not like things are going to be getting any better.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a dogfight. I think with the playoff expanding, 9 wins, nine of the right wins can get you in for sure. I don't know. I think it's possible we can get there. We just have got to make some substantial improvements offensively.
Yeah.
Last year's offense was
not great.
rough.
Yeah.
That was the worst scoring offense we've had in 19 years.
It showed.
Yeah, there's a long way to go there. Defensively, I thought that they were maybe didn't necessarily have an identity, but they were all right. You went out and made a ton of additions to play your brand of football. That's going to have to translate. So I'm with you. I'm taking the over. I think realistically they're going to win 7 games. I'm praying on 8. 8 will make me feel better.
Winning 7 games when you have, historically, just say, winning 7 games when you have Alabama, USC, Penn State, Iowa, and Oregon on your schedule, not a bad fucking year if you can win 7 games with those 5 teams on your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that either we're all going to have to kind of come to grips with, or I don't know. I feel like there's a portion of the fan base that just won't be able to, but like we have to understand that the path to winning between 8 and 10 games each season is going to be substantially more difficult than it used to be when we used to walk through the West.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be different, and I think that a successful season, the benchmark for a successful season, is going to start to look different. And you know, we all want the same thing. It's not like my expectations aren't high enough, or you know, whatever. Like you already know what people are going to start saying, but like,
yeah. Oh, I mean, if we start 2-2, I'm gonna act like the world's ending. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm just already anticipating the people that are like, yes, Fickle was brought here, and in their words, like McIntosh words, to compete for championships, and like that's absolutely the goal. But I think it's also possible that like we could win 8 games this coming season and have it look like a much better product than it was a year ago, and feel like we're training the right way. But then on paper, like it's 8 wins, and people will not be satisfied. And I'll get that. You can fan however you want to fan.
yeah,
I'm just trying to be understanding of the process.
if
Like
we
if
win
want to
8
get
games, I will be very happy.
Yeah, I would be too. I really would.
But
any final thoughts on that line?
No, like I said, we're emptying the clip. I'm confident we'll hit 7 because like I said, I think we'll beat USC in those kind of 3 games down the stretch. Worry me a little more than them, but you never know until the season starts.
Hopefully we'll get a little bit better idea when spring ball rolls around.
Yeah.
First practice end of March. I'll kind of get back after it right away, and beginning of April, and get our first real look at what we're going to be working with this year.
If I see like 13 interceptions at the spring game again, I'm probably switching to the under. But
yeah, hedge a little bit.
Yeah, if there's no hot dogs at the fucking spring game again this year,
yeah,
I already know
that'll be a bad omen, man.
It'll be fucking deja vu. Yep.
Well, I think we're gonna kick it over to our friends over here at Autograph, where we talk a little bit of Badger hoops. Team over at Autograph, co-founded by Tom Brady, is redefining the fan experience by letting users earn points for acts of fandom that they take every day, like listening to the show. If you download the Autograph Fandom app, it'll give you access to all your favorite Wisconsin Badgers content all in one place, while offering rewards like tickets, exclusive merchandise, and more. Head on over to the Apple App Store, search for Autograph Fan Rewarded, and download it today for free using the referral code Badgernotes. Cool, man. We got to talk some hoops.
Yes, we do.
Let's start pre-Ohio State. Let's start at the 4. We're gonna real briefly have to relive that 4-game losing skid. A lot of ugly transpired during that time. I mean, turnovers are an issue. Steven Crowell disappearing act. The 3-point shooting just evaporating. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It was terrible basketball.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, you lose to a Michigan.
Who got beat by 30 against Illinois the other day?
Yeah, Michigan, like that, just an inexplicable loss. They just laid down, and you would have thought that a loss like that would be enough of a, enough to kind of fuel you going into Rutgers to get things right. Rutgers is one of the worst offenses in the entire country. To their credit, very good defensive team this year. But then just get boat raced by Rutgers, like just absolutely smoked, and never feeling like you really had a chance in that game. Like,
yeah,
that's tough.
I mean, I will say, Rutgers is they've been hot. They won 4 in a row ever since Jeremiah Williams came back. So they won again today, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was today against Northwestern. So I mean, they haven't played great teams except Wisconsin, but on a little bit of a hot streak. Still does not make me feel good about losing to Rutgers. Weren't they like the worst 3-point shooting team in the Big Ten and hit 10 or 12 threes, whatever it was?
Yeah, they just shot the lights out. I'm pretty certain going into that matchup, they were like 297th in adjusted offensive
Jesus
efficiency by
Christ.
Ken Pom. Like it was
What the
it,
fuck?
it was some poetic shit that we watched. That was tough, and like you know so much of the Big Ten play is who you play when you play them.
Yeah.
Like you catch team like Wisconsin when they're down like that, and it's a huge resume booster. Just like early in the year when we caught Michigan State the first time when they were skidding. Like so much of it is when you play that opponent. But man, for a lot of people, at least for the last 2 weeks, seeing Wisconsin on the schedule, what
Be
wasn't as
licking my
intimidating
chops.
as you'd like it to be.
Yeah. No, I was me and my parents were going down to Potawatomi when they were playing Rutgers because my dad and I were throwing some bets on the Super Bowl, which they have a sports book at Potawatomi. I didn't know that until a couple
Yep.
months ago. That's dangerous. But between that roulette and blackjack, that's a dangerous place for your boy. But we're listening to the game on the radio on the way there, and I think my mom was about to throw my dad and I out the car because we were just being so negative about everything. I was like, well, we shouldn't even go to the casino. I was like, we're about to lose all of our money. Like, this is just start of a bad fucking day. Badgers can't do fucking anything. And then I think they got to within 7 maybe towards the end of the game. And I'm like, all right, we're so back. Like, we're about to win this game against Rutgers. And then they hit like 2 threes. They bank one in, I think. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Anytime anything went right for us, it was immediately matched on the other end.
Yeah.
Every single time.
And like just looking back over the 4 games, the Nebraska loss, obviously blowing that big of a lead sucks, but Nebraska's a good team. Purdue, okay, you lose to Purdue by 6. I can live with that. Yeah, the Michigan one's bad. Especially, did you see Juwan Howard, by the way, at the press conference when they lost to Illinois?
No, I didn't.
He was basically like, yeah, Terrence Shannon would have been at Michigan, if he didn't get accused of raping someone. And it was like, dude, that's your takeaway from getting beat by 30 right now? Like, all right, buddy. Juwan Howard, I hate Michigan, and I don't want him to fire Juwan Howard because he's a bad coach, but that guy needs to fucking go. That dude's a fucking bum.
That dude should probably get his LinkedIn
profile
updated.
But yeah, that Rutgers bad loss, especially by 22. And it was nice to see Connor have a good game against Rutgers. But
yeah, I felt the same way. Like obviously in this period in which Kamari has been out, John Blackwell has been out, our depth has been tested completely. I mean, we have I feel like we have a good amount of depth when healthy, but when you take 2 of those guards out of the rotation, yeah, you're really thin now. Like you're down to having Connor, which is a blessing to have someone like that off the bench that okay, you need to have an elevated role. Well, he's already been in an elevated role a year ago. Like, what he's capable of. And, I think credit to everyone involved. I think, people might not agree with me on this. I think that Connor Segan is the best basketball player that he's been at Wisconsin right now. Like the version of him that I'm seeing on both ends of the floor, feel like he's becoming a more complete player. Again, I don't ever envision him being some defensive stopper, but I think that he's way more often than not in position. He's doing a lot of the right things, and he's not thinking as much. I think that's credit to Greg's coaching, and I think that's credit to Connor accepting the coaching because there are a lot of people who might have packed it in, and they've been so complimentary of each other. Connor had a quote that really stood out to me this past week when he met with the media, and he had talked about Greg being really hard on him and more or less just said I credit him for me getting back to this point and honestly just making me a better man. And I think at a macro level, that's exactly what's happening here. You don't get coached hard unless somebody truly cares about you and wants to see you flourish. But it also takes a special kind of person to go from playing 26, 27 minutes a game
to not playing some games.
Yeah, setting the freshman 3-point record, being a walking bucket too. Yeah.
Getting DMPs, coach's decision.
Yeah. That's tough. And he's responded by putting in the work.
He didn't give up on himself or the team, which I can commend that. But when I see he had a good game, hit some shots. But if he's our leading scorer, it's we probably have a problem here, Houston. Like, that's probably not a great thing if Essegian's our leading scorer.
Yeah,
And then just to kind of piggyback off of you, and I know plenty of people in the old Badgerverse have talked about it, but a guy who really took some fucking coaching was AJ Storr. That 4-game stretch, and we've been talking about it for a while. Everyone has his shot selection. You knew at some point it was going to bite us in the fucking ass, and it did.
100%.
And
Yeah,
it
and
did.
I think
And
that's the perfect pivot point to Ohio State here, because you're right, and I want to throw it right back to you. Like, you're right. He whether or not the turnover showed up in the box score or not, like decision making, ball security, a lot of red flags there.
yeah,
Like, he was pressing in a way that, like, I think to some degree maybe he had to, but also he was not letting the game come to him. And so, like I said, I want to pass it back to you. Let's talk a little Ohio State. I agree that he took to the coaching.
yeah, which is awesome. Like we said, some terrible shots that 4-game stretch and even beyond. Like just some NBA threes with like 16 seconds left in the shot clock. To me, that's a turnover, unless you make the motherfucker. Like, that's a bad shot.
Yep.
But then coming to the Ohio State game, like, I mean, you put it perfectly. He just let the game come to him. It's a pretty simple concept. Sometimes not the easiest thing to do when your team's on a losing skid and you know, like, okay, I'm the best player. Like, sometimes you feel like you have to do too much. And I think maybe that's where his head was at. But shout out him to responding from coaching. That's when you're the best player, that's also not easy to do. And I shouldn't say shout out Greg Gard, it's his fucking job. But to get on his ass and have him change, like, you got to change the way you play, else we're not going to win games, man.
Yeah. AJ
Yeah,
scored 14 points on 9 field goal
9 shots.
attempts. Love
Yeah.
that. You know,
6
he
or
went
8
to
from the line. Beautiful. The biggest thing, though, and I think this is where Greg got on him, 12 rebounds.
Yep.
If
Greg.
if he's attacking the boards like that, we are a completely different team. And 6 of them were offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and so that's one of the main things that I want to touch on. Yeah, 6 offensive rebounds is incredible, and it's something that I feel AJ Storr, because of his God-given athletic ability, it's a way that I feel like he can impact the game. And Greg has talked about, like, AJ, you need to be able to impact the game in other ways than scoring.
Yeah.
And he heard that. Like, he crashed the glass. He's so athletic. Like, he is capable of being a weapon for them as a rebounder. Like, look back to, and I understand that, like, I've probably used comparisons and comped like this a few times, but, like, look at a Johnny Davis. Like, Johnny was a rebounding machine, and AJ is far more athletic, in my opinion, than Johnny was. But, like, Johnny was a weapon as a rebounder. You know, I believe AJ is capable of being something similar when he applies himself that way. And I don't know, thought AJ was awesome. Took a lot of great shots. We took
Only
what was
1
there.
3.
He was aggressive anytime the lane was open. He forced 5 fouls, shot 8 free throws. Like,
I did not realize he forced that many fouls. Damn.
I've got no gripes about AJ
No.
Storr's game. I thought
He played awesome.
a couple of things I really wanted to see going into the Ohio State game. I guess it's worth acknowledging Ohio State, not that good.
No, they're
Chris
dog shit.
Holtman fired the day
Fired.
after.
Yeah.
Like,
Up, dude.
Like, so, but I'm more of a process over results kind of person with anything, because I think in life, like, you are taught to do things a certain way. If you do them the way that you are supposed to, it's easier to live with the results. And so part of why I believe in the win over Ohio State a little more is a few things. AJ Storr, as we had mentioned, letting the game come to him, taking better shots, 1 turnover. Love to see it.
Yep.
Number 2, needed Chucky Hepburn, like, to play better. Like, he's been rough during this stretch. He scores 9 points. He has 7 assists,
Yes.
no turnovers in 39 minutes, which
5
we'll touch on
rebounds.
that. 5 rebounds.
2
And
steals.
he was incredible on defense. Like, he got back to controlling the tempo of the game and playmaking, not just like hollow numbers, but truly playmaking. And so I thought he was wildly impactful. Another thing I wanted to see was Steven Crowell was averaging 4.7 points on 35% shooting during the losing streak. Steven Crowell had 16 points, 10 rebounds. He did have 4 turnovers. Wasn't crazy about that. However, and I love this out of Greg post game, one of the turnovers came on an offensive foul, which Steve was just being aggressive. And Greg said, Steve's got a punch card with me. He gets one a night for basically throwing his weight around. Like,
I love that.
And he's always fine. He's got one on the punch card. Steve used it. He played aggressive. And more than anything, he took advantage of really the only one-on-one opportunities he's had in a while. I thought that was kind of to the detriment of Ohio State. I thought the book was kind of out during this losing streak. Like, if you doubled the post early, like, that was something that we've been struggling with. And they decided to go one-on-one, and Steve was great. And one of the last things that I wanted to see, and this is where I'm going to go process over result, was I thought part of why, I think we talked about it on the pod, part of why I think Storr maybe was pressing so much is there were not that many people actively hunting their shot. And I wanted to see Max Klesmit shoot more. I think he is somebody who needs to be roughly a double-digit point scorer for us, and that could mean 10. Like, I don't, nothing crazy. But he took 10 shot attempts. Now he went 2 of 10 from the floor.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going process over result, because I didn't really have a lot of gripes with the shots he took.
No, he just missed them.
They didn't go in. But I was happy to see him hunting shots, because I think at times this group is guilty of maybe being too passive. And, I guess I was just encouraged by that. And so those were 4 of the things that I was really looking for. And I think they hit on a lot of them. So felt good about the outing as a whole.
Yeah. And the Klesmit thing, I'm fine with you. I'm fine with him going 2 for 10. He doesn't take, 1 or 2 bad shots a game, maybe, but he's taking open looks and he just misses them. But he's a guy, 2 for 10 today. He could go 9 for 10 next game and have you 20 something fucking points.
Maybe I'm 24 points in like 5 minutes. You never know.
So I'm with you. I love when he's a little more aggressive, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. Basketball's hard. You're going to miss shots.
Yeah.
Steven Crowell officially back as Big Steve. He was Little Steve for that 4-game stretch. I don't know what the fuck was happening. I thought he had like the Joel Stave yips for a second. I guess they were double teaming him a lot, but at some point you got to figure it the fuck out, man. One thing I loved about him, though, and I know I've kind of complained about maybe the big guys being outside too much. I thought Wall had a real good down-low presence against Ohio State. Crowell, he only made 2 of them, but he took 6 threes. And I've mentioned multiple times this season, I'd love to see him kind of shoot the 3-ball more. It's not like he's a sharpshooter, but he's a guy you got to respect when he's out there. And I feel like that opens up the offense a lot more for him even.
It definitely does. And my wife's probably heard this at nauseum, but I'm telling you, man, if Big Steve hits on that first 3, he will hit a second 3 in the game.
Yes.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
He's going to. And so when I saw that first 3 go in, I'm pretty sure his first 3 points of the game, I was like, oh, we're back, baby.
Yeah.
Like, here we go.
And then watching Chucky Hepburn reminded me of the way I love to play with like my NBA 2K My players. Like, just, I'm going to stuff the stat sheet, just boost all my numbers. Obviously, I'm going to get a little more buckets. How you doing? But watching him play that game was it was beautiful. That was basketball, like in poetry in motion, if you will. Yeah, Chucky played awesome. He was aggressive on both ends of the floor. He had the 3 fouls, but I'm always fine with Chucky getting 3 to 4 fouls. That just means he's being aggressive defensively, and he's going to get his every game. And like you said, kind of being more of a playmaker. He gave me or reminded me of like that Magic Johnson video when he's talking about when like passing the ball, I think against the Dream Team. He's like, whoop, whoop, like going up for layups. He's like, ah. But that was a terrible impression. But it reminded me of that video of like Magic Johnson like talking about himself, like doing no-look passes and shit. Like Chucky was just in his fucking bag. And he honestly could have had 10 assists, I think, if the fellas finished a couple more shots. I think Crowell got 2 of them blocked on like little pick and rolls, kind of little pocket passes. But yeah, Chucky was awesome. Tyler Wall played great. Another guy who kind of just let the game come to him, 5 for 9 from the floor. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, only 2 turnovers, only 1 foul too for Tyler Wall, which was huge. One thing that concerns me, like you said, I know we got some injuries. 5 bench points is not going to fucking cut it against better teams than Ohio State.
Yeah, the only thing I want to comment on that is just
I mean,
you
he
know,
only put 3
of those,
shots.
of those 5 bench points, like Nolan Winter had 2 turnovers. Like he's had some troubles. He's been called for travel a handful of times. Like I still continue to think that there is a really, really special player there
Oh,
with
yeah.
Nolan Winter. I think this will be a massive summer for him. You know, if he can take a step forward physically, like I watch him, he battles in there. Like he's not afraid. You know, we've watched the development arc of Wisconsin big men for 20 years now, all follow the same pattern, you know, playing early and underweight and seeing flashes,
Yeah.
watching them progressively get a little bit bigger, a little bit more confident, and then developing into a nice player. And I watch Nolan, he battles, like he's still learning so much. Like he has a long way to go. I want to acknowledge that fully. But he's got a really nice touch.
Yeah, he can fucking shoot that shit, dude.
Yeah, I really don't care what the percentages look like. Like I'm certain that that's a 35% 3-point shooter that we're looking at. Like
Yeah.
he's a good 3-point shooter. I believe that through and through. Think he's going to be a really nice player, and
Oh, he's going to be a fucking stud. It's
he's
just,
been earning more time down the stretch.
yeah.
So
He's young and not height wise, but just like kind of stature wise, undersized. Like he said,
yeah,
I'm gonna love to see what an off season in the weight room does to him.
a lot of freshman moments, but continue to be encouraged in small bits by what we're getting from him.
Yeah,
Overall, to your point though,
not
not impressive for the bench at all.
and
And
like they only took 3 field goals.
like this is where probably one of my biggest gripes with maybe guards management right now. And again, I want to say this fully acknowledging that there's no Kamari McGee. You do not have John Blackwell, who is your 6th man.
Practice today though.
He did, and John said he's going to play on Saturday, so that's huge. But I just think you can't. I don't think you can ride the starters as hard as you are.
Chucky can't play 40 minutes every
For
game.
no, man. Like, and I get it. Like at this point, your option is
Yeah, you have
Isaac.
to.
I said it,
Yeah,
effectively Isaac Lindsey. You know, and when you have John back, then all of a sudden maybe some of that can be John, maybe some of it can be Max. Like this is where they've been pigeonholed into. But Greg Gard did not make a substitution the final 10 minutes and 14
yeah,
seconds of the game. And I think that's gonna weigh on these guys if they continue to be asked something similar. So, you know, fingers crossed this team gets healthy and that's not gonna be the conversation we're having. But I don't know that that's sustainable.
yeah. I mean, just look box score check in. The bench had 3 field goal attempts, 3 turnovers, and 3 personal fouls, and 2 rebounds.
And Carter Gilmore was the only person positive in the plus minus. Like, but then you look at the starters, all of them were
Yeah,
+3 or better. Like, I
it's an
get it.
issue. It's an
It
issue.
like I said, I feel that way, but you look at some of the numbers, they don't reflect justifying more minutes, you know. So it's I understand Greg's like, you gotta win. I I see it both sides. I just think you ride this team, you know, another month playing those heavy minutes, that come back to bite you. But
Yeah.
like I said, hopefully we get healthy here and it won't be a discussion any further.
And just kind of final thought. Yeah, Ohio State sucks. Their coach got fired. I don't we could have been playing a fucking middle school B team. I would have been happy with a win, man. We just needed one. Needed
Yeah.
one. Get back on track. So
Eight,
happy with the
18
win.
days. 18 days without a win will
Not
leave
good.
you will leave you happy with any
We
kind of dub.
we almost went from number 6 in the nation to unranked, and I would have totally understood it.
Yeah, 100%. I figured when the AP poll came out, we were sitting at 20. I thought we would be in the lower 20s, mostly reflecting a lot of the analytics sites had us sitting around like 18, something like that. And so I was like, all right, I think we might have some staying power, but like our time's running thin. So, bracketology's got us sitting at a 4 right now. So like they've been more forgiving of us than anything, but we got to right the ship. We got to right the ship. We got to string it together. Like this can't be a one-off, and we sure as fuck can't lose to Fran McCaffrey.
No, God, no.
Any last thoughts on hoops before we get into our closing segments here?
No, not really. Like you said, just can't lose to Fran. And I guess one more thing on the losing streak, it just kind of made me laugh. Jason had a tweet where it was something along the lines of like, can't have your worst half of the season 8 halves in a row and like expect to win games, dude. So, like I said, I'm hoping that the Ohio State was a nice step forward in our direction of the season, and not just a blip on the radar. And all of a sudden, we lose to fucking Iowa and Maryland, and then we have to panic again.
Yeah, feeling the same way. I think the truth with this team lies somewhere in between what we were doing and some of what we saw, and I think that product is still a really good basketball team. But they're gonna have to string a few together here. I continue to think that Big Steve maybe is the key to this team playing well. He's outside of Chucky's 20% assist rate. Steve, by a large margin, is number 2 at over 15%. Like he's just responsible for such a large portion of the offense, whether he scores it or assists on it, that we just really can't have Steve struggle for long periods of time. They got him back on track. I hope he continues rolling. He played really well. Think that was a really big part of it, and taking steps forward. And as Greg said, that
go ahead.
Now they asked in the post-game presser, like what is the key to, an aggressive Steven Crowell? And Greg said getting him the ball. He's, and I can't remember his exact quote, but it was essentially that it was a mandate, and it was effectively communicated throughout the week.
I love that.
That he was to be receiving the ball. And
I love that, though. Yeah, that's a good coach. That's a good coach right there.
Yeah, I think that it's just non-negotiable. They need to be able to play, and through Tyler too. Both of them. But it was encouraging.
Just one quick thing on like talking about the assists. Just on a whole passing game note, we need to practice how to throw alley-oops to AJ Storr, because it's driving me fucking nuts. He could have had like 5 or 6 insane dunks this season, and they were just terrible passes. And he's just uber athletic where he makes the play anyway. And you're like, oh my fucking God, like where'd this guy come from? But he could have some sick fucking dunks. I know he had that one off the backboard earlier this season that
I'm gonna cherish that forever.
Dude, one season. Yeah. That shit made me so wet. But like, yeah, we need to practice alley-oops here. So
well, Coop, that's going to bring us to one of our new segments that's going to be in the weekly rotation here. Our big dog of the week.
Big dog.
Who are you going to honor this week?
Well, I got 2 big dogs of the week. My first big dog, EA Sports, baby. It's in the motherfucking game.
Baby.
Dude, the college football game trailer, that teaser trailer came out today. I watched it like 30 times in a row. I was like, this is going to be so fucking sick. Like, I'm so jacked. I'm going to take that week off whenever it comes out this summer.
Have to.
Yeah. It's only coming out on the newer consoles. No question, I'm buying a PS5 when this game comes out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Not even a fucking question. I'll donate my PS4 to fucking charity or something, but I'm buying a PS5 when this game comes out. Yeah, so EA Sports, big dogs, man. I couldn't be more fucking excited for this game. I've been waiting, 13 years?
I say 2014 is the one you and I played for at nauseum after they stopped making them.
Yeah. So. And just like seeing everyone's tweets today, kind of in the sports world, it's like, I can't wait to take like Toledo to a championship. And that's what I was like, dude, I can't wait to spend 5 hours after work recruiting for Colorado State, turning them into an absolute fucking powerhouse.
No, you're preaching to the choir. I loved every second of all of the people like, oh, I'm taking like Louisiana State, like
Yeah.
because everyone's got that school.
Yep. You
And
have to.
just the gross amount of hours that we spent playing both sides of the ball at Colorado State, like
No,
always gonna have a soft spot for those guys.
we never missed a snap in like
Mm-mm.
7 seasons of gameplay. One of the things I hope it's not like Madden, because the Madden gameplay is fucking garbage nowadays. So I hope they kind of keep that separate, because I felt like they did a good job of that back in the day. Like the college football game was a way different. It felt like, at least, like game engine than the NFL game. But one thing I do hope they do, that you can do on Madden, is like online leagues where you could just have like everyone like pick a team in like the fucking Big Ten and do an online league. Like something like that would be sick. But yeah, EA Sports, big dog.
Yeah, no, that's a
excited.
no-brainer.
Yeah,
That's an absolute no-brainer.
and then
Who gets to share the honor with EA Sports in a week like this?
What's that?
Said who's your second one? Who gets to share the honor with EA Sports in a week like this?
EA Sports gets to share the honor with this person, the biggest dog of the week. Shout out Caitlin fucking Clark, man, breaking the all-time women's NCAA scoring record. She needed 8 points, had the first 8 points of the game for Iowa. Hit a three from the logo to break the record. Had 23 points in the first quarter and finished with a 49 piece. They won by like 20 something. So shout out Caitlin Clark, man. If you would have told me 10 years ago I would be like this tuned in to women's basketball nowadays, I would have called you a liar. But between like Sabrina Ionescu, I probably butchered her last name. I shout out Sue Bird. I've always loved Sue Bird. But like Sabrina, Caitlin Clark, kind of the younger players we've had up and coming in the women's, mainly NCAA game, has been awesome to watch. And Caitlin Clark's just fucking sick, dude. So shout out Caitlin Clark, big dog. Past Kelsey Plum on the all-time scoring list. And Kelsey Plum, let me tell you something. Give me all the bathwater, dude. I would suck that woman dry. Are you kidding me? Dude, she is something. It was like 2 or 3 years ago when they won the WNBA title as the Aces, and it's just picture her and she's got a cigar in her mouth, and it's like, man, I would let you tie me up and do whatever you felt like to me, Kelsey Plum. So kind of sad to see, that go from her perspective, but shout out Caitlin Clark, big dog.
So if you're Caitlin Clark here, and like obviously now you're the all-time leading scorer, do you exercise your COVID year and just eviscerate the record so nobody can ever touch it? Because
yes.
I think I might just be ego-driven enough if I was that good at something to come back on that alone. Like I'm going to rewrite this shit.
She could probably make more money coming back.
I've often thought that, and then I kind of go back and forth like, okay, she's got this shit with State Farm. Like, do you think if she turns pro that State Farm all of a sudden is off Caitlin Clark? Like,
no, obviously not.
I don't think so. And so like, I don't know where I stand on that. Like, she has obviously made her mark.
She's making millions. Yeah.
She's one of the most famous collegiate athletes.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah, I don't know. Perhaps college does offer that. With NIL, like we truly will never really know because that's not going to be disclosed. But yeah, I don't know. Either way, there's going to be dinner on the table if she stays in Iowa for another year. I can promise that.
Dude, apparently too, I was watching some special on her last week. I guess she's like a scratch golfer too, or some shit like that. Just one of those people who's good at fucking everything,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just searching for one thing, and she gets to have a whole bunch of them.
But no, shout out Caitlin Clark, big dog. Shout out Kelsey Plum, big dog.
I want to give my big dog of the week to my new coworker Andrew. Dude's been with us for a couple of weeks now. Been training with me. Moved up here. Just recently graduated Purdue University. Kid's just he's got a terrific work ethic. Kind of uprooted his entire life to come here. Just busting his ass day after day. Great attitude. I don't know, man. It takes stones, I feel like, to move states away from where you grew up, where you lived, in pursuit of something. And he's just been grinding, and an absolute pleasure to work with. I've trained a lot of people across multiple fields over the last 10 years, and he definitely stands out as somebody who he gets it. He asks the right questions. He works his ass off. Just got a lot of respect for the kid. He's going places. want to give my big dog to Andrew. Andrew, I got a lot of respect for you, and excited to see what's next.
Shout out Andrew, dude. Fucking Drew, fucking Andy.
I'll bring him out with the boys one of these times.
Hell yeah.
I'm not sure he's ready for that yet. He's just a young buck.
Yeah, we'll let him get a little more accustomed to Wisconsin culture.
Yeah, I've turned him on to Quick Trip. Like that's a revelation for him. So like that's where he's at in his development arc right now. Like he's got ways to go.
Yeah, because they're a big Casey's state down there, I think, for gas stations. Like a bunch of fucking poor people.
He'll get there.
Yeah, Quick Trip far superior. But no, dude, I'm a fucking basic bitch. It'd be hard for me to move fucking 2 states away, like not knowing anyone. Just start my life over.
Yeah, so, I live in the town north of where we grew up. So
yeah,
we didn't.
I live 20 minutes away from my parents' house. So
same.
Like this is the life I live.
If no tractors get in my way, I'm probably 10 minutes away.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Oh, so fuck. What are we doing here this week?
Not a whole lot pissed me off this week. I will say that. But what are we doing here? Obviously, the big game was this past weekend. Shout out the Chiefs for winning a Super Bowl. Shout out my Uncle Randy. His favorite team's the Chiefs, so I was rooting for them. Got to support my big dog Ritter. But what are we doing? The Super Bowl commercials, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, have been absolute dog shit for like the last 12 years. But what is Jesus doing here? I saw there was 10 commercials about that Jesus or whatever, Jesus.com.
That's that tax-free Catholic.
Tax-free, bro. Yeah. They're out here dropping $20 fucking million on Super Bowl ads when you're supposed to be for the people. What are we doing here? Are you kidding me? I'm not a big religious guy, so I'm already going to fucking be a little agitated by that shit. But I could, 1 or 2 commercials, whatever. I'll let that go. Teach his own. But when there's 8 commercials about the fucking big dog upstairs, Jesus, what are we doing here? So that one kind of fucking grinded my gears. But I
had more issue with the whole Tamu thing or whatever the hell they're.
That was my next one. I will say Tamu is even bigger on my shit list. I have never heard of this company, and they spent $80 million in fucking Super Bowl ads. There was a meme. I don't know if you've ever watched Succession, but it was this perfect picture of Kieran Culkin like this in a boardroom, and it's Monday morning when the guy who was supposed to spend $8 million on ads has to explain why he accidentally spent $80 million for Tamu. And I was that sounds perfect. What the fuck is this? That one fucking irritated me way more than the fucking Jesus commercials.
That's a company where you order shit on the real cheap and it's coming on the slow boat.
Oh God, looks like someone took the slow train from Philly. But another thing though with the Super Bowl commercials, like I said, they've been dog shit. The Dunkin' Donuts one, with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Tom Brady and J-Lo was awesome. And then I loved how they doubled down after the Super Bowl and released a 5-minute commercial, and they're kind of doing a whole mini series on it. So that was cool. And then the commercial with Michael Cera, I got a picture of this saved on my phone. The Cera V, where the opening line was I'm Michael Cera, and human skin is my passion. Bro, that shit had me dying. And when in the commercial too, he's let my cream moisturize you. So that shit had me fucking rolling. I was we need more Super Bowl commercials like that. And then the only other thing that irritated me, we don't need to get into this too much because the internet's been beating it like a fucking dead horse. Kyle Shanahan, what are we doing here? Taking the ball first in overtime. You should know the new rules. And for your players to be oh, if we score a touchdown, we don't win the game. How you had 2 weeks to prepare? How are you not communicating this to your team?
It's a tough look.
And then you see the inside the NFL when the Niners took the ball and Mahomes went back to the sidelines. He's they took the fucking ball, these fucking idiots. And him and Kelce are hell yeah, that's exactly what we wanted them to do. So you knew at that point the game was over. But yeah, Kyle Shanahan, guy can't win the big game. What are we doing here? That's just piss poor coaching. And then Steve Wilkes wasn't the greatest with that defense, but then to make him the scapegoat and fire him, this week, like that was the problem. That's why you didn't win the Super Bowl. Yeah. So what are we doing here, Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah, I thought the Wilkes thing was, I don't want to say unfair, because I mean, at the end of the day, he didn't win the big game, and I guess if that's your prerogative, but I think they've cycled through 4 defensive coordinators in the last 5 years. So like,
Yeah.
I don't. That was a horrible look. Like
I was like, what is this guy doing right now? Like, why do you want the ball with the new rules? It made no fucking sense. I was happy though, because I hate the fucking 49ers. So it was glad to see them just like Kyle Shanahan collapse like he always does. That made me really happy. But as a Packer fan too, that had to make you feel pretty good. That, I mean, the Packers could have, should have, would have beat the fucking 49ers, who almost won the Super Bowl. So things got to be looking up for you boys.
Niners are the Packers' kryptonite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I entered that game fairly indifferent, where small part of me was like, didn't care if the Niners won on account of they beat Packers, and also fuck the Niners because they have made me unhappy a lot of times. a lot of times. Yeah, so fuck them.
But that's all I got. You got anything?
No, that's it for me, man. I think we'll probably bow out of here at an hour and a minute long. I think
nice short episode.
Yeah, I think this is all the more proof that we need that Ryan and Jason are obviously the problem.
Yeah. Get out of here 20 minutes early, dude.
Yeah, right. Look at us. These guys.
You know what? We're the big dogs of the week.
Yeah.
Fuck them too.
Shout out us. That's the end of episode 26. Want to thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch you back here next week.